So today I'm interviewing Ben Siong, who's the owner and founder of Train ASP here in Brunswick East, I think it is.
Yep, Australian Strength Performance.
Australian Strength and Performance. And just over 12 months ago, I had Ben on and we spoke a lot about different aspects of his business, his coaching career, but had a lot of feedback from listeners and really enjoyed Ben having a conversation. So we're back here for round two. So welcome, Ben.
Welcome to Melbourne. You just arrived yesterday.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And great to see you nice and tan in Melbourne, which is so erratic.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get tan, but I'm excited to be back on this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
Good. The thing with weather here, I was speaking to my mum before I came in, it was like 40 degrees on one day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, when it came up to 44 on Friday. Yeah. And then it dropped to 20 on Saturday, which is ridiculous.
So for the people who are living in Dubai listening to this, that they probably don't understand because the Dubai weather is literally the same weather every day, every single day.
Yeah.
So first off, just before we get back into it, maybe for the people that didn't hear that very first episode, but I'd recommend you to go back and listen to just because there's a lot of valuable content in there. But can you just give us a brief introduction on your coaching career?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I run a strength and conditioning facility in Melbourne called Australian Strength Performance. The facility focuses on high-level training, so we do a lot of performance training for athletes, work with athletes over 16 different sports, and also bodybuilding athletes and physique athletes, bikini athletes, to prep them up for shows. The facility is operational 7 days a week, so we train people all this time, but we also have a range of educational courses that we bring out. And over the last 6 years, the educational courses has been kind of distributed and taught in over 14 different countries, and we're looking to bring them into more countries next year. So
it's expanding because I think last time we spoke it was maybe 10 or 9 countries.
10, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're growing from year to year, which is good. But the main thing is really to bring out my passion in letting people realize what they need to know.
Yeah. Cool. And just going back as well. So you started like myself and many other coaches at Fitness First as a
good old Fitness First
personal trainer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess just a question, because I think a lot of PTs get stuck in their career and they don't actually see that pathway in terms of what you're offering now. What do you think is probably the big step, not just for you, but for trainers to take that to that next level and to see an actual career? Because you see, I think it's the stats of personal trainers coming into the industry and they might only be in for an average of 2 years.
Yep.
Where do you think that is? Where do you think it falls down? And maybe relate it back to yourself on that.
Sure. There are a few points, actually many good key points to cover on this particular topic itself. I think with personal training, it's people enter the industry because they have a passion for training themselves. So because you have transformed your body, you feel like you have the right or the understanding to be able to help another person. So most people enter the industry because of their own personal interest in transforming the body. The problem with the personal training industry is once they get in, they don't know how to relate that personal information to the client. Yeah. For them, every client seems to be the same as themselves. And what they need to understand is that individuality. So they need to understand people come to you in different shapes, sizes. There's a whole genetic platform that you need to understand. And so your results may not translate into their results. Yeah. Your goals are not their goals, right? So being a personal trainer is really that sort of feeling to understand over that year or a few years that you are in the industry to understand your clients better, understand how to create better results with those clients, because results are never the same, but also at the same way, how you can sell your services, because a lot of personal trainers love to train, but they don't know how to sell. Personal trainers are actually the worst people to be able to promote their services. That's why the dropout rate is so high, because they can never make a living out of it. If they can make a living out of it, chances are they will stay in the industry for a much longer period of time. And I remember being in Fitness First as well, and they would give personal trainers leads, but a lot of the times they would not teach the personal trainers how to convert those leads effectively. And being effective this was one of my posts on Instagram. Being effective is not about selling a service, because the moment you put the word sell in there, it means that you are trying to force your opinion on the client. Being effective as a trainer is learning how to extract the needs of your client from a conversation, is learning to build rapport. It's learning to understand if you can give a solution to your client, a solution that actually meets their needs, then you don't have to sell. Then you're talking to them about something that they want, something that they desire. And when that becomes the case, they will buy into your services regardless of whatever you're trying to sell per se. So it doesn't become a sale anymore. And I think that needs to be emphasized in the personal training industry.
And so with you, was that all self-taught with you, or was that intuitive, or did you have a mentor, or was someone actually guiding you and saying, okay, this is the way it needs to be done, or you that understood that sales process as well, or not?
I was very fortunate. I had done a lot of sales prior to entering the personal training industry. So I've done, direct face-to-face sales and marketing. I've spent, a good 2 years in there developing my skills, but also developing how to step out of my comfort zone. I had done telemarketing on the phone for 4 years before that, part-time. So I had a good amount of sales experience. Now, coupling with the fact that fitness was kind of my passion, I think that really aided me in helping to get my sessions up. But a lot of the trainers, the newer trainers that entered the industry, had no prior experience.
So you were just kind of fortunate that you did that.
I was very fortunate to get in with that. Absolutely.
And now with your courses, is that part of, do you have an arm that actually teaches sales or how to convert a fresh lead coming in, or not?
Absolutely, we do. So we do have a range of courses called International Coach Development Courses. So there's a level 1 and a level 2. And within those courses itself, we teach trainers, skills on not about sales, because sales is that one word that I don't like, but teaching trainers how to identify the needs of their clients. So it really is about the technicality of screening your clients, identifying, what is going on within their body itself, what sort of solutions can you provide for them, and actually be true to those solutions that you can provide for them. Learn to, do you need X amount of sessions per week? And be honest about that. Don't give the client, 5 sessions because they can afford it, because 5 sessions may not be the right approach in getting them the optimal results. So the key in actually getting a buy-in from a client is actually be genuinely interested in their needs rather than trying to sell something.
Well, I think there's a good differentiation. It pushes you away from the sleazy kind of sales image as well. And you kind of become that holistic coach, because at the end of the day, if you do a needs analysis on that person and that person's saying things that aren't congruent with what it is their goals are or whatever it is, you can quickly work out, okay, well, this person's either in here wasting my time or whatever it is. And then so it's easier for you to then, sell or, get them as a coach into your business, I guess.
Absolutely. Now, one of the big things that I talk about in my courses is teaching coaches to look at clients from a much wider lens and a bigger perspective. In the training, personal training field, you always taught about, periodization of programs, fair enough. You're taught about certain sort of lifestyle changes or nutrition per se. And so this is what you meant to help your clients through. But at the end of the day, results are created more than just training and food itself. It is a lifestyle. It is a mindset. It's understanding their ability to comply to the information that you give them. So being a coach is learning how to tailor the information. You may be the coach to write the best program, but if that best program doesn't allow your client to fit it in because of their lifestyle or their choice, then you don't get compliance. If you don't get compliance, you don't get results. So a good coach is not necessarily someone that holds a lot of knowledge. A good coach is someone who knows how to impart that knowledge. And I think a lot of coaches also have that mistaken, because a lot of coaches would invest in money to get a particular qualification next to their name. But that doesn't mean anything if you cannot convey that information to your client. I think coaches need to understand and learn the basics and do the basics very well, and learn how to apply that basics to different situations and circumstances of their clients.
Yeah, that's a great point. What would you say, what are the fundamental basics that just so we can be clear and so the listeners can be clear, what are the fundamentals that when you walk through the door of a gym, or if you're looking to employ someone, what do they need to know, and what skills and attributes, I guess, are you looking for?
The one thing I look for in a coach is their ability to listen more rather than speak.
Yeah.
A lot of coaches, you find that if they cut the client short in their conversation and they try to speak over their client, a lot of the times these are the coaches that know how to sell or try to sell. These are the coaches you would find that will be not very successful in the long run because they're pushing a product that they themselves may not believe in, or they believe the client needs, but the client doesn't. The coaches which I find are very effective are those that actually sit down with the client and ask questions to allow the client to answer, so open-ended questions. And they take their time to extract information, not out of the words that are being spoken, but out of the way those words are being said. How are those words being said? What are the emotions behind it? How do you extract information from there?
Yeah.
And if a coach can be good at doing that, these are the coaches you will find that will do very well. Because once they understand the basic needs and the pull-in of a client, you know what the client is emotionally anchored to. This is what will create the change.
Yeah.
Is the emotional anchor in food? Is the emotional anchor in training for confidence? Is the emotional anchor wanting to look good for whatever reason? So moment you identify an emotional anchor, you're able to cater whatever you need to give to the client in terms of training and nutrition to the client. Now, let's talk about Dubai. Right now, Dubai is a place of you go there and work hard. And you go there and party hard. Let's put it that way, right? A lot of people there.
It's the Las Vegas of the Middle East.
It's the Las Vegas of the Middle East, exactly right. So a lot of people have the finances to say, okay, you know what? I want personal training sessions. Great, that's brilliant. However, when they do personal training sessions as well, as hard as they train, they party as hard as well. So they may be going out there and they may be having brunches and crazy weekends and drinking, and debauchery and whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, they want certain results. Yeah. And if they're training and they're not recovering well enough, they will not get those results. Yeah. So as a coach, your goal then is really to find out what these clients want. You got to find a middle ground, because it's useless to give them that super ideal program, but given their lifestyle, they won't adhere to it.
Exactly.
So
and I think
compliance is key.
In Dubai as well, is a bit of a problem, as people have that disposable income. And they'll go, okay, I want a six-pack by summer. I'll do 5 sessions a week. You tell me whatever supplements need to do.
Yeah.
But they're not actually fixing what you were speaking about, the lifestyle, the back end.
Correct.
And how would you, if you were mentoring a coach on that scenario, what would your approach be to, I guess, coach someone through that?
Yeah. So definitely find out about the lifestyle first of the individual. Once you understand the lifestyle of the individual, you have to understand what the individual is willing to do to get to the end point, right? So some people, for example, again, they're willing to train, but they're not willing to give up alcohol or this food or that food. Now, then you got to understand, if that's the case, will you get to that end point? And if you can't, then I've got to be real with you and tell you no. And if you can, what steps can I do? One thing I like to teach coaches is when you introduce a change, you do a change, you make it one change at a time. Yeah. So most people, if you introduce a lot of changes within their lifestyle, it becomes a sacrifice. People often feel that they're giving up too much. And when people feel they're giving up too much, they will not make that change.
So it's like a stepped approach.
It has to be a stepwise approach. In fact, the less they feel that they are giving up, the better they're going to adhere to the changes you're going to give them.
Yeah. And then I guess the follow on from that is they get results, and then they start to get that positive reinforcement. They get emotional. They go, okay, this is working. So if I do this, and then they'll ask the coach, what can I do to get more of that?
Spot on. And that is exactly it, because respect for a coach is not actually given, it's earned. And trust is earned. So if you have given your client a bunch of instructions, and your client can follow simple instructions, don't feel like they're sacrificing something, but then they get the results, they will learn to trust you more. And when they trust you more, then your word goes as a coach. And that's important, because a lot of coaches don't get buy-in from their clients. They don't get that trust. They're just trying to give them instruction. And when they do give them instruction, you find that your clients will never adhere to it, because they don't have an emotional anchor to that instruction.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're circling back to sort of going in loops here, but in terms of the question originally asked about like what are the fundamentals for the coach, you touched on just then being able to listen.
Being able to listen.
What are the next things for a coach that you look for as a skill set, but then also what are the fundamentals they need to go away and learn to be, I guess, proficient as a coach?
Yep. I'm going to take this away from the training part of it because I find that it's more the attitude of the coach that I'm looking at that's able to develop into a better coach. So take away any sort of physical training because that can be learned. And obviously a good coach needs to understand some sort of anatomy and anatomy well. They need to practice the basics of movements well. I mean, the basics. Don't give any sort of fancy exercises, unstable surfaces. You want basic exercises that the client can perform. But again, we're taking the training out of this. So a good coach really should be able to listen. A good coach needs to learn to dispense advice one piece at a time. A good coach needs to know when not to overwhelm the client. And the good coach needs to know when not to overtrain the client. And what I mean by this is, again, speaking to a very busy society, if your client is highly stressed in their life already, let's say someone in Dubai is overworking, working crazy hours, as you know, and obviously their lifestyle, their food choices are not the best, their whole body will be in a state of inflammation and stress. Sure, they can afford 6 sessions a week with a coach, but question is that going to genuinely benefit the client for body composition results? The answer is probably not, because that overloading of stress, if they train more physically, that adds on to their overload of stress. Now, if their overall stress hormone, cortisol, increases over time, they're not actually going to get leaner. In fact, they will tend to store fat. Okay, we know that from science, they store fat around the belly. So an excessive amount of cortisol is not going to be good. A good coach then should learn to look at that situation and decipher, if my client is highly stressed, based on all the questions I ask my client, I would learn to pull back. So if you were my client, Adam, what I would ask you is a whole bunch of questions relating to your stress levels from different areas of stress. And I would probably tell you, you know what, I know you can afford 5 times a week, but I'm going to make this choice for you and you're going to start with me twice a week. That's all I want you to do. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to get the results, Adam, you're going to trust in me. And like I said before, trust is not given, it's earned. If I can earn your trust, I can get you to do a lot more to your physique. Right. And it highlights the point that I am not here for your money. I'm here for you. And when your client sees that you're genuinely interested in them, that will be a long-lasting relationship.
Well, it's going to increase their compliance. It'll increase the trust in you.
And the longevity of the business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. With that, I worked in a gym in Dubai called D5, and a lot of the people that would come and train there were these type A super successful guys, CEOs, CFO guys. But when you tell them something like that, as you need to rest more, it's like their brain doesn't actually compute. And it's actually I found it very challenging because these guys had come in and they just like wanted to thrash themselves, and because they had that sort of mentality of like, I'm in the gym, I need to work hard.
Understand.
And if there's someone on a treadmill next to them, they don't get off the treadmill until the person's got off the treadmill, because they want to be better than whoever else is in the room. And so for them, that was quite challenging to work through as a coach with those guys.
That's actually a really good point. Now I've got 2 pointers here that would probably support or help you with that scenario. Let's say I was speaking to a trainer like that. One of those things is that if you're working with someone with a type A personality, and you understand that they obviously need some rest to kind of lower that cortisol level, you need to understand the way that they view stress is a perception, and that perception differs from person to person. Let's say you look at someone like myself, right? Same sort of type A personality. My perception of yoga is stressful. So yoga, which should be calming, really should help me, frustrates the heck out of me. I can't sit there, close my eyes and meditate. To me, it's an absolute waste of time. So I physically can't. I either fall asleep or I get irritated. But I need something that resonates with me that will lower my cortisol levels. And it could be an activity. It could be going out and walking on the beach. It could be going out there and looking at the greens. It could be art. It could be listening to music. It could be something that is active, not passive, but it actually calms me down. So type A personalities don't like quiet spaces, because quiet spaces majority of the time gets their brain thinking too much as opposed to not thinking. So you need to give them something that they would do, still activity, but their perception of that activity is calming. In fact, shopping could be a type A activity of being calm. You see, so it's a perception. So I would have to find out from that sort of person, what do they like to do that actually calms them down? That's the one thing.
The one thing that I found was they want to be successful and equating, okay, you need a rest day to be successful.
Right.
But it takes them a while.
Yep.
Because like you said before, it's like a step system. It's like you can't walk in the first session and go, okay, this is what we're doing here, because they need to get that trust from you as a coach.
Yep.
And so sometimes they'd have to walk over the hot coals first, but then eventually you'd get them there. But it's that element of trust that we spoke about before.
100%. Now, with people like that as well, you expect their cortisol levels to be high, really high.
Very high.
In fact, it's high and it's prolonged because they've been type A for a long time. So the stress is high. So the kind of workouts I tend to give them is short but sharp workouts. So instead of giving them a workout that's 40 minutes long, get them doing some sort of CrossFit or moving through that at a really at an activity that keeps increasing the stress, what I tend to do is give them short bursts of activity, so high volume activity with minimal rest. And what that does is it shoots up their cortisol levels, no doubt about that. But because cortisol goes up really high, they're not able to sustain that. So they'll have to drop. Right. And that's better than actually slowly increasing their cortisol and keeping it high for an extended period of time, because they already have high cortisol within the system.
And so what actual, I guess, template would you go? What's the time frame?
I would give them 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Come in, I'll give them a 20-minute workout. I'll start with something heavy to upregulate the nervous system to start off with. But during the heavy sets where you typically give them a longer rest, I minimize that rest. So I will do one big heavy set to start off with. It could be 10 minutes or, some 7 minutes or 10 minutes of heavy. And then the rest of the time is high volume stuff, but minimal rest. So I literally push the air out of them. So by the end of 20 minutes, they're done. They're looking at me going, I can't do anymore. Get me out of here. I don't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
And so I know I've pushed their limits. I've got their cortisol high, but that was 20 minutes rather than them pushing themselves over an hour and keeping their cortisol levels high. Now, sure, I've got them high, but then they've got time to drop and relax.
Yeah. And with just, I guess, closing the loop on that one, with the nutritional approach and maybe even a supplemental approach, I mean, it's obviously case by case. You can't say, I'd give this person this because you don't know what they're presenting. But if you were to generalize on this, what would you say? What would your nutritional approach be for someone who's like that type A personality, wants to achieve, but is highly stressed?
The main supplement that I think people need and forget about is magnesium. That's the one thing. So with type A personalities, there are a few different ways you can approach this with different types of magnesium. If they are people who are constantly stressed through the day, but they sleep well, you may need a certain type of magnesium. If they don't sleep well because they're thinking about too many things, you may need a different type of magnesium. So as you know, magnesium comes in what we call a chelated form. So it needs to bind to a chelate in order to be dispensed and absorbed by your organs. The more different chelates you have in magnesium, the more well absorbed it would be. Now, a lot of the magnesium supplements we find in the market nowadays come in magnesium oxide or magnesium citrate. Magnesium oxide and citrate are not very well absorbed forms of magnesium. So if your magnesium supplement has a really high level of citrate and oxide and you're taking a large amount of it, it becomes a laxative. So you go to the toilet, right? So people go, I can't take magnesium high amounts. Well, it's because the quality of that magnesium you're taking is actually poor. You need to make sure that your magnesium has anything but oxide and citrate and multiple types of chelates. So you might look at a magnesium glycinate, magnesium lysine, taurate,
L-theanate, or no?
Threonate, orotate. So these are different types of magnesiums, and they represent different functions within the body itself.
Yeah. So just on that, what if you mentioned before, if it was someone who they slept well, but they obviously needed more magnesium because they're high cortisol, what would the form be? And then on the flip side of that was someone who's restless and they can't sleep. What are the two different forms that you'd recommend in those situations?
So generally, if I look at someone who has, you just through the day, stress levels are high, I'll use a very general form of a mix of chelates. I know the Poliquin brand or the supplement actually does a really good one, and that's the only one I've able to find with that sort of combination. So that one has a mix of I think it's orotate, sulfate, if I'm not wrong. It's got 4 different types of magnesium, like a general blend in there, and I think that
it's the
that
Ubermag,
works.
yeah?
The Ubermag, yeah. But then obviously, if you're looking at something for sleep, then you need to calm the nervous system down. So anything to do with the brain, like maybe even a glycinate, might help.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
A taurate, magnesium taurate.
Taurate. And then what was the other one? L-theanate.
L-theanate, yeah.
Yeah, because L-theanate's the one that crosses the blood-brain barrier.
Correct. Yeah. So these are combinations that would help to kind of calm the brain down as well.
Yeah. And anything else on that side of things, like any of the adaptogens or for...
You can definitely use adaptogens. I find that adaptogens are better to upregulate a dull brain rather than try to calm someone down. Someone's already hyper calm. I mean, you can use things like phosphatidylserine, phosphatidylcholine, and different individuals react differently with choline and serine to kind of calm them down. Inositol or inositol, which is a fruit, naturally occurring fruit sugar, is also really helpful to kind of calm the brain down. I find that for people who cannot sleep properly, inositol actually works really well. And inositol or inositol is a fruit sugar where you've got to titrate upwards to find the ideal dose for yourself. So you might start with 3 grams, 4 grams, 5 grams, and you kind of titrate at 1 gram upwards. And the ideal dose comes when you kind of, it's funny, you get a nightmare, for example.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and you hit a point where you get really weird dreams, like bizarre dreams or a nightmare, you've hit that point. So if that point for you is like 10 grams, you hit 10 grams, your ideal dose is 1 gram below that. So 9 grams is what you stick on.
Yeah.
So you just got to titrate that upwards.
That's for me when I take 5-HTP, my dreams just go off the Richter, like go so crazy.
Yep.
But nothing else. I've tried inositol before. I've tried all the different sleep supplements and adaptogens and all that stuff, but it's never had that effect. But whatever it is in 5-HTP, it's just just sends me a bit crazy.
Yeah.
So I think this is really good information. And I think a lot of people, even coaches, are guilty of this as well, as they neglect that side of things in terms of the stress. They're working crazy hours. What other, I mean, it doesn't have to be from a nutritional approach, and I'm sure you touch on all this stuff in your courses as well.
Yeah, we do.
But what other methods from a training standpoint, but also from a lifestyle, how do you integrate that with your coaching with clients?
For a highly stressful person, you mean?
Yeah, just in general.
Or a coach.
Because for a coach or for the highly stressed individual as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
One thing about nutrition, which I just want to kind of reloop and recover, is the absorption of nutrients, right? So I find that a lot of clients, they can eat the best foods in the world, but because they're so highly stressed, what happens is their absorption of food actually becomes quite poor. We understand that stress actually depletes hydrochloric acid, HCl. So HCl is the acid of the stomach, it's a gastric acid, and it's the acid that helps to create the optimal environment for your enzymes, your protein digesting enzymes to work. Right, within your stomach itself. Now, if you're highly stressed, you don't produce enough HCl, and so you can't break down protein. So people who are highly stressed, if you ask them what they want to eat, the first response tends to be sugar, something simple, easily absorbed, carbs, and that's what people gravitate towards naturally. Right, so that's the body talking. They don't want to eat protein. You will never get someone who's highly stressed craving for steak. That doesn't happen.
It's true.
So that, to me, is a straight sign that their HCl levels are low. And if your HCl levels are low, you're not absorbing nutrients. In fact, the amount of zinc, the amount of minerals, and the phytochemicals that you're absorbing is actually depleted. Yeah. So you're not fueling your body at all. You will not be able to reduce the stress because you're not absorbing minerals. So one thing for someone who's highly stressed is I will get them to take a HCl supplement with enzymes. That's key. Because once they can absorb, their body starts to dissipate all that stress. It starts to go through a period where it can absorb a lot more food. They don't crave as much sugar. They're not as hungry because they've got the nutrients, and it kind of rebalances itself to a large degree. So that is kind of the base that I need to start them off with.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if you're not absorbing it, there's no point.
Correct. So the best foods in the world is quite useless if you're not absorbing it. you know, irregardless of how organic or whatever you're looking at.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
But I think in terms of training as well, coaches often don't listen to their body with regards to training. And I think you get some coaches that are highly technical and theoretical, and they would follow programs, but when they follow programs, they fail to understand whether their body can actually adapt to the recovery periods, right? So certain programs are tough and they're there, but they don't take into account that these coaches may need to recover more because of their personal circumstances. So one thing I would tell coaches is actually learn to step back and understand what biofeedback is. And biofeedback is understanding your body a lot more. Same as food. Coaches that follow calories and numbers are so fixated on those numbers that that's all that matters to them. They don't ask the question of, okay, well, I'm eating 4 grams of protein down here, but my protein's coming from whey, and I actually don't do well with whey. But they're not realizing they're not doing well with whey because they're counting the calories. That's all they're doing. So biofeedback, and one thing I'm really big about with my coaches is teaching them to step back and actually go, okay, how is my body responding to the type of program I'm doing right now? How do I feel energetic, for one? Do I look forward to training, for one? Now, we know that, yes, you've got to be out of your comfort zone to get results, no doubt about that. But if you come to a point where every training session becomes a drag for you, you feel horrendous, you feel horrible after it, but you're putting yourself through it, it's not a good sign.
No.
You know, so something needs to be done. You need to step back and go, is this the right kind of training for me? And training programs actually need to be written according to neurotype, neurotransmitters. It needs to be written according to body type, because there are people obviously that gravitate towards certain programs and stuff like that. So what are you doing? Are you putting your body under too much nervous system stress? Are you training heavy all the time and not giving your body enough rest? Or are you training high volume and little rest all the time and you're not overexciting your nervous system, so you're actually downregulating yourself? So this all needs to be taken into account when it comes to programming. And I think coaches need to have an understanding of that, because that would actually help to give them a perspective of their own programming to themselves.
Yeah. And when you're talking about just before programming based on the neurotransmitters, is that on the Bravement test?
No, actually, the Bravement test will give you an idea of, you know, dopamine and serotonin and how you need to train trainers and stuff of that.
Yeah.
Is it true? To a degree, it is. I mean, Charles Poliquin did talk a lot about that, but Charles has his own theories on that. There are other trainers out there, or other I would say fitness gurus out there that have their take on it. Christian Thibodeau is definitely one of them. And I think Christian's approach towards neurotyping is a little bit more complete. It's not based on the Braverman, but it's a little bit more complete. Now, do those tests give you 100% accuracy on exactly how you should write programs? To me, the answer is no. I think it definitely gives you a perspective on how you can design programs, but that perspective still needs to be considered in relation to, you know, lifestyle factors. Compliance is definitely one of them. Now, it's great to have someone that you can analyze based on their neurotransmitters and write a program for them, and provided that they have the time to actually carry out the program. What if you're training an executive in Dubai? They have 2 days to train. There is absolutely no way you're able to write a program based on neurotypes. What if they don't have the equipment? So I think it's very important to understand the theories behind neurotyping, because it does give you a perspective. But I think in terms of application, this is where coaches need to learn to be critical, right? Because going back to the basics, going back to the start of our conversation, the basics could mean giving a client a simple squat and getting them to squat for a period of time. So I'll give you an example, right? You get a lot of type A personalities. Type A personalities, they're very, they like to challenge, they're very dominant, but also at the same time, understand that these are the guys that have been at work for all day. I mean, working day, their brain is drained. We know from neurotyping, type A personalities like to have changes in the program because it stimulates them. But also at the same time, if let's say you're my client and you've come from a busy day of work, the last thing you want to do by yourself, if you're not training with me, is to have a whole range of different exercises.
And have to think.
You have to think. Much. I think the best sort of program to give you is a program that's like German volume training, right? I'll give you 2 exercises. You just repeat 10 sets of 10 and get it done. But because it's 2 exercises, so long as you perform these 2 exercises well, every rep is executed with perfect form, you're going to see amazing results. But you don't have to use your brain. This is where I remove that thinking, and I actually can effectively remove the cortisol from thinking. Just focus on 2 movements, but do them well. This is where the basics is super important.
Yeah. And I think just watching you over the years and following on social media is you could give 2 people the same program and you get 2 different coaches coaching that person, but you can have completely 2 different outcomes. And
Absolutely.
When I see you coaching and you're teaching your guys on your courses, you're hands-on, it's like everything's done precise, you're doing it very accurate, whereas you get someone doing exactly the same program and it's completely misinterpreted.
Completely different.
Yeah.
Correct. So a movement, any sort of movement within training, for example, requires a firing sequence of muscles. So your muscles fire at a particular sequence. And that sequence is called a neuromuscular pattern. Often we develop incorrect neuromuscular patterns because of our compensation mechanisms, imbalances, injuries, adhesions, all that kind of stuff. And so when you see someone performing an exercise is never an exercise. You need to kind of look and understand which muscle is actually firing, because they can perform that range, they can lift that weight, they can make that movement, but they may be compensating through another muscle. And so a good coach will learn how to dictate that and learn how to pick out exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
So an exercise is never an exercise.
No. And then that's the beauty, I think, of watching your courses, is you see you're teaching that. And it's for me as a coach, it took me many years to do that. And whereas I guess doing a course with you and someone who's been through that before, and which I wish 15 years ago I had someone teach me that. And it's only probably later in my career I did a few courses in FMA, FMS, and I started to really understand the biomechanics of the body and how to actually just watch someone. Yeah. And then you can understand that. But I think for anyone who's listening, to shortcut that is just through education. You just see someone who's been through that before and seeing someone who understands the biomechanics of the body and seeing we can learn so quickly off someone else as opposed to wasting time doing things incorrectly for so many years.
Absolutely. Learning the theory is one thing, doing courses is one thing, but practicing it yourself is another. And so this is what I often find, because sometimes you get people in my course, and I kid you not, I had one of my course participants or students come to me and tell me that they, within the course itself, very highly educated, in that sense, lots of degrees and lots of courses under their belt. And they've come to me saying, I've done a advanced deadlifting program or advanced deadlifting course seminar just a week ago. And I was asking him, okay, what do you mean by advanced? What's the difference between deadlifting and advanced deadlifting?
Marketing.
Can you tell me what have you done? Actually, can you show me how to deadlift? And he goes to me, and this is the one thing I remembered. He says, I've never done a deadlift before. Can you believe that? And so this is a sports science student, by the way. So you're looking at him going, okay, you've done all these sort of theories. You've never deadlifted before. And you're telling me you've done an advanced deadlifting program. So theory does not translate into practical at all, because at the end of the day, what do you know? You are so theorized, you go seek out all this knowledge and you pay a lot of money to learn more, but you don't put it into practice. So this is where I'm talking about as well, coming back to understanding the basics. Practicing it yourself is so much more important than spending your money out there trying to learn as much as you can, but you just don't know how to apply it. It's quite useless.
Yeah, well, you got to walk the talk. And that was the same with me. I went back and did my exercise sports science degree in 2010, 2011. And so I was like a mature age student. I was going back with all these like 18, 19-year-old like kids basically, and they're going through the practicals, and these guys had never picked up a weight before. And it was kind of hilarious for me to go through the course. And they're like saying to me, you know how to do all this stuff. And it's like, well, I've been coaching for a long period of time, but it's like at the end of the degree, would I trust an exercise sports science graduate versus someone who's been in the trenches coaching someone?
100%. And I think this is a very pertinent topic that you kind of touched on right here, because a lot of, if you're looking for a personal trainer, I have no doubt you want to look for someone that has a lot of degrees, lots of understanding, and so you're able to make a judgment on that. But hold your horses for one, because at the end of the day, someone who has a lot of degrees may not understand you, may not have the practical knowledge to apply. So, and I think that's what our fitness society has become. It's a sad thing because a lot of sports scientists are out there saying, I've done this degree and I've done this qualification, but they don't know how to apply it effectively. And this is the rift that I face right now in trying to bring science to practical and practical to science, because you get either we open and close inverted commas, the old school trainers that are so practically driven, that have done so much practice, but they don't have the exact science or papers or theory to back it up.
Yeah.
And you get the scientists that is all about theory and science, like you need to prove something, but they've got no practical to back it up. And they're arguing their way through, going, this study has done that, this study has shown that. Well, I don't care what this study has shown. At the end of the day, I've produced this results with my client, and that's important. So I think there needs to be a middle ground, and there's a big gray area and a big rift. So trainers need to learn how to evaluate science and be smart about it, because a lot of trainers just accept science for what it is, need to evaluate it, be critical about it, but then also learn how to extract the essence of that science paper and put it into practice. That's what I guess my courses are about, is really to kind of translate and to bridge that gap.
Yeah, well, it's an important gap to bridge, because it's the art of coaching. It's like they don't have a university degree that will teach you, what that person's body language is, what that person's giving to you on that day, how to read someone is only comes through, I guess, coaching and time.
Yep.
And I guess with courses like yours, if you can shortcut some of that, it's like you need to do stuff like that if you're serious about it.
Absolutely. And the more and more I start to see a need in the industry for this, it's really interesting. But I think if trainers are open-minded enough, they should look into trying to bridge that gap. Yeah, absolutely.
And have there been any times when you've had run your courses, any other interesting, because I find that quite interesting, that story about the deadlifting advance. Have you had any other like funny incidental stuff like that? People coming up to you?
Lots. I mean, courses, most of the time you get people within the course. You get a whole bunch of people within the course, but sometimes you get people that obviously think they know it all. And in terms of exercises, these guys are very theory driven, but the moment you put them into a practical based scenario, they don't know how to actually run a workout on their own accord. They don't know how to train. And these are the people, that are more interested in sort of listening to the theory, and they put up their hands and ask a whole range of questions, and they disrupt the class and you're trying to be smart. But the moment they step on the gym floor, it's like, mate, you've never touched a weight before. And there are those that are very quiet, that don't really understand the theory, but then when you put them on the gym floor, they're great. They know how to train. And so you get the different learning types. So obviously a big range of people who are more kinesthetic, who feel more, people who are more visual, who see more auditory and so forth. So I guess a big role for myself is to learn how to connect to these different learning types and give them information that they can take back. And at the end of the day, no one comes to a course to take back 100% information. They will take back a certain amount, maybe 30% or 35%, but it's what they can take back and utilize effectively. So that's the main thing. But you see a whole range of different, like a lot of the stories I would hear tend to be nutritional stories. So when I'm doing like a fat loss specialization course and we delve into lifestyle and nutrition and all of that, you get people asking really weird questions. That's where you get the crowd looking, what are you going on about? But we got, we talk a lot about digestive health. We talk a lot about poo health, stool health. And you get all these weird questions talking about, people asking about their own stool. I've got a friend who's got, diarrhea, and you got a friend, sure. It's actually you, right? It's always the friend. But they're always talking about, it's interesting things that you will pick up. And a lot of the times I find that because every scenario is so different, the biggest thing I take away from that is cultural differences. So having taught in Dubai, what I find really interesting is in my classes in Dubai, when I do a seminar, I might get 13 different countries being represented there, because everyone is from everywhere, right? And so you get a taste of the different cultures that come through, and people are quite open to different ideas. You go to Asia, for example, let's say in Hong Kong, and in the class, you just get the locals. And when you do get the locals, that's where you go, okay, now this is culture specific. So if I'm speaking to you about eating like a Western person, what if these guys just eat rice? What if they're not big on their protein sources? What if they only have a certain type of protein available there? So how am I to cater to their taste? Singapore, for example, is huge on food. So talking with them is actually you got to learn how to relate to their local foods. What if you're talking about, increasing your proteins and vegetables and salads and stuff? Some of them don't relate to that. So what is an equivalent of a salad? What's equivalent of a protein source for them?
Yeah.
What is equivalent of snacks for them? And so it's learning how to explain concepts in ways that they can engage with.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that, because in our business as well, we do a lot of educating on nutrition, try and teach them how to, improve their own lifestyle and their situations. But some of the, we only learnt that after starting the business, is you see all these different cultures and they have all these, but you'll see a certain section will ask all the same questions.
Yep.
And they'll all want to, and so now we've kind of adapted the program to be a bit more of a plug and play. Your culture can have this type, your culture can have this. Because otherwise, if you just make absolute rules, it just does not work from a compliance standpoint.
100%.
As well.
100%.
And have you had any, because I've always had this, well, not always, but there's always a funny incident. Once every 4 weeks, we'll have someone come in and they'll say, look, I'm not losing weight. The program's not working. And then, 2 minutes later, I've asked them 3 questions and they've got all 3 questions wrong. And it's you haven't actually been following what I've actually tried to convey. Have you had instances like that where someone will say to you, this program doesn't work? Or
numerous. Actually, it just brings me back to one of the instances I had with a bikini girl. And she was I think it was about 4 weeks out from a comp. And at 4 weeks out of the comp, she was meant to be at 52 kilos. She was a bikini girl, and she weighed, I think, 56 4 weeks out from comp. So it was 4 kilos difference from where she would be. And I remember her coming to my office and we were taking measurements. And this was back in Fitness First. And 4 weeks out, they're a little bit stressed. They're not getting their target weight, and for her, it's she's doing everything she can. And I remember talking to her in the room and taking her measurements, and she said to me, "Coach, I don't understand why my weight's not dropping. I'm doing everything you're telling me to." And I'm taking it. I'm going, "This is impossible." I looked at her in the eyes and I said, "You're lying to me." I pointed my finger at her and I said, "You're lying to me. This is not. What are you doing that is not following the plan?" And as you know, 4 weeks out, they're very emotional. She got so angry. She kind of stood up. She was very offended, insulted. And she stormed out. She slammed the door at me and she goes, "How dare you question me?" So I was kind of left there going, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But I didn't doubt the fact that if she was following the plan, she should have dropped. I had no doubts about why that should have happened. So for me to have gone, something is going on, I needed to find out what it was, but I just kind of left it there. So she messaged me later that afternoon and she goes, "Coach, I'm sorry for my outburst, but I just wanted to ask you something. Can you tell me if 2 lattes a week would make a difference in my weight?" I said, okay, here it comes, 2 lattes a week. So from a caloric perspective, 2 lattes a week is nothing. You could burn that off easily. But the point is that she was intolerant to milk. And this is why I'm so big about understanding gut health and intolerances, because intolerances surpasses what just calories can do. So that those people who think that calories is the end all and the be all is sadly mistaken. Now, this was not about calories. The fact that she did not do well with milk meant that she had built up an intolerance to it. So for her body held on to water as a form of stress because she was exposing her body to dairy products and milk. So she had 2 lattes a week, large lattes. And I said, "Oh God, I told you to stay away from that. I knew you don't do well with that." It makes a huge difference because in her mind, it's just numbers, right? It's not about numbers. It's how your body does with it. So I said, okay, take out the 2 lattes in a week. You've done what you shouldn't have done, but take it out and let's measure you at the end of the week. At the end of that week, she got down to 53 kilos. This was in 4 days. In 4 days, 3 kilos by cutting out 2 lattes a week. It doesn't make sense from a caloric point of view, but that clearly goes to show that intolerances play such a pertinent role in how the physique changes, right?
And it's not necessarily fat. She's not storing subcutaneous fat.
It's water under the skin. So if you think of a female having a period, for example, that she can put on 3 kilos overnight, that's water. That's water because it's a form of inflammation. And that's exactly what's going on. Cortisol levels gone through the roof because she's exposed herself to dairy, and she's storing water under the skin like she's having a period. And it's literally just flushing the water out.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where, people listen and they don't realize it. They go, oh my gosh, yeah, never knew milk was doing that to me.
And what was the end to that? How did it follow up with her? Was she?
Oh, she was, well, obviously at the end of that, she goes, okay, well, I understand what you're talking about right now. But you see, this is it. She had to experience it to see the truth in what I was saying.
Yeah.
Because coming out of my mouth didn't make any sense.
And also, although it is like painful for her to hear that and say, you're lying to me, is probably what she needed to hear.
Yep.
But
you see, this is the worst part about it. She thought she did what was right. And this is why some people don't lose weight as well, because they do what they think is right, but what is right is not right for them. 2 lattes a week may not affect another bikini competitor, but it affected her because of her intolerances. And that's very individual. Common intolerances are things like eggs as well. So some eggs, for example, may affect one bikini competitor, but not another. So you got to learn how to identify what actually affects the person before you give them a nutritional plan.
Yeah. And that's why you can't just look at the numbers.
No, exactly
on the screen.
Right. Exactly right. And numbers play a part. Don't get me wrong. Calories are super important, but they're not the end all and the be all. And they need to be considered with a range of other things. And that's what I'm big on teaching. That's what the fat loss course is about.
Yeah. I guess just branching into that now, your courses, can you just give us an insight into some of the maybe the new ones, or just some of the basic or the most popular ones?
Sure.
On what the topics are and what I guess you can expect when you complete one of those courses.
Yep. So our courses range from 1 day to 3 day courses. Our most popular courses will be the hypertrophy and fat loss courses. So teaching people to put on muscle, to build muscle effectively, teaching people to lose fat effectively. Now, to a degree, they kind of overlap in terms of concepts, but we've extracted a lot of just fat loss only topics and hypertrophy only topics to give the coaches an understanding of the two main sort of topics. Fat loss courses is based on teaching to identify what are the best training strategies for fat loss. So we actually break everything down from program periodization to what to give to a client, how you need to consider your programming for optimal results. Yeah. And then we delve 2 days into lifestyle and nutrition. So we're looking here at,
So is it the total of
it's 3 days for fat loss.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So a fat loss course is 3 days. And then the 2 days will be on food and nutrition, on understanding gut health and understanding microbiome, and then teaching them how to apply that information to the client. So that's the practical aspect of application, which is important. The hypertrophy courses, we've got a level 1 and an advanced hypertrophy. So these are focused on, they're 2 day and 3 day courses, focus on building muscle. So then everything about program design will be based on building muscle effectively, and everything on nutrition and training will be on muscular building. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
So these are the two main ones, and then we've got the coach qualification courses, the international courses for developing coaches, and there are 2 courses. Each course is 3 days long. And they are meant to teach coaches how to screen clients effectively, how to create a scenario where you can deliver the information of what your client needs and package it into what your client wants. So we're teaching coaches how to promote their services per se. And then it's also running through things like nutrition from a chemical perspective and understanding and breaking down the science of food itself, and also exposing them to a range of different styles of programming that coaches may not understand. So we've adopted all the styles from coaches that work in the Olympic lifting sort of circles, where a lot of our strength and conditioning programs will kind of develop from, giving them an understanding of different programming styles for developing strength, developing muscle per se, fat loss, and all that kind of stuff. So giving them a wider range of tools for body composition itself. Teaching them to be a coach from a trainer. That's the main thing.
Okay. And so what do you find? What the case studies, success stories of the guys that have gone through your education? Have you do you keep in touch with the guys that go through your course? And
all the time.
Yeah,
all the time. I mean, we definitely have a group where we include everyone that has done the courses to support them. Weekly, daily, we've got questions asking us about clients and client health and client status, and so we reply that to be able to support them per se. But I think the most important thing is I want to hear success stories of the coach's business, because that gives us an understanding that they are successful in their application. And so I followed up with that all the time, making sure that if a coach is learning that information from us, I want to see results. Tell me how you're doing with your client. Tell me how many packages you're converting with your client. Tell me whether you're retaining your client effectively. So we definitely want to see that effective conversion, because that is an indication that not only are they learning the theories from us, they're learning how to apply it, and they're learning how to make a living out of it. Yeah. This is exactly why we talked about it. Coaches drop out of the industry because they don't know how to make a living out of it.
Yeah. Well, I guess the best, sales or anything like that is once you're producing a lot of results, it becomes a perpetual thing of referrals. Yep. You can see the success of their business will keep growing.
Absolutely.
Because they're producing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they don't have to seek out, other forms of advertising or whatever it is, because they're producing what it is. So just talking, so the last 12 months or 12 months ago, we had Martin, one of your clients, in here. We spoke a lot about Martin, and just offline we spoke about Terry. There's two guys. One of them had a brain injury. I'm not sure what Terry's condition was.
They're both very similar. Brain tumors.
A brain tumor, sorry.
And in operating the brain tumors, during that time they've had strokes. They've tried to remove the tumor. For Martin, for example, the tumor was a very aggressive one. So they removed part of it. It grew back again. They didn't give him chemotherapy to start off with. And so when they decided to give him chemotherapy, he already had 2 surgeries on trying to remove that tumor, and it grew back. Yeah. And so when chemo came in, it kind of hit him hard. And so he's kind of paralyzed from one side of the body from a stroke, but also with the medication that he's going through. And right now he's going through rehab. Right now he's at a stage where the tumor is stagnant in the sense that it's not growing. It hasn't subsided per se. He's done chemo on it. Hasn't completely subsided, but it's not growing any further. So to us, that's a good sign, and at least it's contained. And we're trying to work with him right now to be able to increase his function, his movement, his ability.
Yeah. It was just inspiring to see someone like yourself who's, working with elite athletes. You also coaching coaches, but you also take the time to sort of give back, and you don't make any money out of that. It's just from the goodness, I guess, of your heart, which is, inspirational in itself. But I think what we also touched on offline before we hit record was how building up someone's confidence like that is such a integral part of, I guess, coaching. But for someone like that who perhaps has been through all the medical professionals before, and they haven't instilled that sense of, I guess, coaching and to bring someone up and to share with them and to push them forward. Can you just touch on that for you? Because I think last time we spoke about yourself having confidence, and I think it was your pastor or your father had instilled a sense of confidence in you. How do you as a coach, I guess, impart that on someone that might not have confidence or might be going through a tough time like that?
To me, let's say if I'm working with an individual that's physically handicapped, any sort of confidence comes in seeing themselves improve physically. So whatever they've been told by doctors, which they're not able to walk again, not able to move again, has given them a sense that that's it, that's done. If they're handicapped, they're handicapped. But if I can make a change and a little movement in the part that they're handicapped in, then and if they can see it and acknowledge that becomes a confidence booster. So my goal is always to try to get them to do something that they could not do physically, or they thought they could not do physically. And that could literally just mean moving a finger. That could mean any sort of slight movement, moving a toe, lifting the leg up. And I want them to see it. So I make an effort in all my sort of novel attempts to try to get them to do something. And I really don't think straight. I kind of, I think laterally. If it's a sport they used to play, get them playing the sport again. Get them doing something with the sport again. If I could use art to get them to express themselves, words. But essentially I want the right side of the brain communicating the left side and so forth, especially for people who are paralyzed on one side, because we understand that if the brain can work well on one side and you keep repeating the activity, it kind of carries over to the other side. So basically is to increase their confidence in doing something physically.
Yeah. And then from another, not necessarily a disabled point of view, but if you're working with a bikini competitor, because I've seen you in the WBFF before, and you come across as a very confident character on stage. How do you instill that in someone, whether it's a bikini competitor or a physique athlete, or whether it's a coach that you're working with here?
Yeah. Let's say you're talking about a competitor, which is completely different.
Yeah.
A competitor has that 3 minutes to perform on stage. It's a performance. And sometimes you would find competitors that may not have the personality to perform. So some bikini competitors, for example, love it. They love to shine. They don't like the prep. They hate training, but they like to shine on stage. So that's what they're looking forward to. Some people love the training. They want to get lean, but they hate the stage. For them, they dread it. They only do it because they have to. So at the end of the day, the stage, the 3 minutes is a performance. And getting them confidence in that performance is what I need to do, right? So whether it's teaching them how to make it to fake it, or fake it till they make it per se, which really is how long can they practice for? So practice makes perfect. So for me, and let's say specifically about bikini competitor, is to get them to practice in their heels as though they will practice on stage day in, day out. Be posing, from 8 weeks out from comp. Learn how to walk in those crazy 6-inch heels, walk around in your kitchen, walk around at home, be comfortable in them, because the last thing you want to do on stage is try to think of what you need to do. On stage, what you do should be you. So if walking on those heels is not you, make it you. Walk, do anything you can in those heels and get comfortable with them. Learn to flex, because if you're uncomfortable with people looking at you, be comfortable in them. Put yourself in a scenario where whatever you do up there is going to become 100% natural. The more you do that, the better you would be. And that's really how it is. Same thing for a coach. I mean, if a coach is not used to talking to clients about services, or not you selling per se, not uncomfortable talking about money or anything like that, sometimes it's actually putting themselves into the situation multiple times to actually get good at it. So whether it's talking to a client, find someone that you can talk to. Offer your services. If you're not comfortable with talking money, don't talk about money first. Offer your services in identifying the needs of the client. First, learn how to do that. Find the emotional anchor. Talk to them, right? But getting a coach out of their shell and making it as natural as possible is key.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess for you now, and I've just looking at your social media, you've got a lot of coaches here that might have been here in the beginning with you and have been coaching with you for that whole period of time. How did you get, I guess, pick the right people, but whether it's you picked the right people or you groomed them to become, and now you see in your courses, a lot of those coaches are actually facilitating and doing some of the courses as well.
It's very interesting you talk about this. For me, picking the right coach has never been about knowledge. I find the coaches that come with the most knowledge are the coaches that are the most difficult to work with, because they come with their own opinions and they come thinking that they are the best and you should treat them better than any other coach. I look for coaches that actually are a lot more open to learning. These are coaches that may not have experience, but they have the will to learn. They're very open to learning and they're very open to investing. The one thing I consider with my coaches and people that I want to work with is their investment in me. And this may just be me speaking. That means if my coaches can fork out money and time to invest in me, it gives me a reason to invest in them. I've got coaches calling me and saying, hey, I want to be part of your team. You've never invested a single cent in me. You haven't invested in messaging me. You haven't invested in understanding what my company is about. So don't talk to me about working in my company when you haven't invested a single cent in me. At the moment I talk about money, oh, no, I'm not interested. Well, why would you think I'll be interested in having you in my company?
Yeah.
So And this is it. This is black and white. You scratch my back and I scratch yours. If you want to work with me, invest your time. Let me see that you're truly interested in understanding what we're passionate about. And we can take it from there because and that's the way I kind of choose my coaches here. So all my coaches would have to have done a course to understand what the course is about, understand our philosophies, get a grasp of that, and then they come in.
They've got skin in the game.
Absolutely.
If they've dropped $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever it is on the cost of the course, you know these guys are serious about.
They're serious about learning. That's the main thing. It gives me an understanding of their attitude more than anything else.
And how do you wear all those different hats? You're presenter. You're a competitor at one point. You're
I will still be competing.
Are you still competing?
Oh yeah, it's in my blood. It's in my blood. I will soon.
This year,
no, I haven't competed this year. No. But I'm looking for a comp that doesn't kind of interfere with my travels, or even if it does, it has to be a suitable time. But I'm definitely going to compete again. I haven't hung my shoes or my trunks for that matter.
The very small trunks.
Yeah, very very tiny trunks.
Yeah. So how do you wear those different hats, and what's the carryover between being as leader of the business and this this franchise that you're running here, but then also stepping in as an educator, and then when you're working as a coach, I'm assuming you're still doing sessions with athletes and stuff as well.
Yep.
Like how do you work on that? How do you?
With a lot of difficulty. Let's put it that way. I mean, it's never easy wearing so many different hats. I do the best that I can, and I'm definitely far from being perfect in whatever hat I'm wearing. So my goal every day is, I look at a few things. I look to add value to the people that I come across with. That's irregardless of whether I'm with a client, whether I'm a boss or a mentor, or being a father as well, or a husband. It's to see how I can add value, and that's basically it. I get up and I want to learn how to add value to these people, and I want to be genuine in what I give. I think at the end of the day, if my goal is to add value, I really and to be genuine, I'm not looking for a return, and I'm not looking for a response in that sense. I just give what I can. And that kind of just drives me and leads me to do what I'm doing. I don't do courses on how to be a good boss. I try to be a good human being. That's really what it is. I do unto them what I want done to myself. So if I look out for them and I'm appreciative of something and I give them something, it's because if I had a boss, I would like my boss to do that for me. So these hats are not, they're not hats that are learned per se. I mean, these are hats that are worn just as it is.
Yeah.
I just live it through every single day, just doing what I do. I don't have a formula on how it is.
No. And where do you think? Well, actually, this rounds out to probably education side of things as well, and self-development. But what, say, in the last 12 months, what personally have you been focused on improving? Whether it's education courses yourself that you're attending, books that you're reading. Where's your efforts been focused on in that development?
Every year, I would tend to want to get some courses done. I never see. For me, one belief as a coach, and this is me personally speaking again. As a coach, I feel that you have to practice what you preach. I find that coaches, a lot of the times, they are so delved into teaching that they fail to practice it on themselves. So these are the coaches that I find you will get tired very fast, because when you're teaching something that you are not doing yourself, you're not an extension of what you're talking about anymore. I make it a point that whatever I teach is who I am. It is what I practice. If I talk about nutrition, it is what I do. Come in and check my lunchbox every single day. I don't deviate from what I preach. And people kind of look at me and go, "You serious?" I'm dead serious, because it's my lifestyle. And no, I don't sacrifice anything. I don't go out of my way to keep my lifestyle. That's why it's a lifestyle. I enjoy doing what I'm doing. I enjoy eating what I'm eating, living how I'm living. I do. And this is why I can stand up there and I find that I gain energy from giving, because it's what I do. I'm giving you an extension of who I am. I train. I want to look a certain way. And when I preach about body composition, is because I make an effort for myself to look a certain way. I practice it every day. If I'm talking about training clients to coaches, I have my hands right in the industry, I'm still training clients. I train multiple clients online. I train clients physically in my center. I make an effort to do that because I think it's important as a coach to be hands-on in whatever you're talking about. You know, if you want to run a good restaurant, learn how to clean your own restaurant, learn how to be a good cook, learn how to be a good waiter, learn how to be a good front of house. Because at the end of the day, you need to wear multiple hats. And this is where multiple hats just becomes a daily thing because it is an extension of you. I'm not literally taking one and putting another on. It's just an extension of who I am. So through the year, through every year, I look to do new courses to basically increase my knowledge in, you know, whatever I can. Any time I get to go on a conference, for example, that I'm speaking at, there'll be other speakers speaking on different topics. I will go to attend topics that I haven't heard before. Something just to make me question more, something to make me think about more. And this year I did some courses on posturology from Posture Pro. You know, I went to Canada, Canford Pro to speak. And I basically tried to find as much time as I could with industry leaders. Christian Thibodeau, for example, Larry Vinette, and really try to sit down with them and talk to them, pick their brains and understand what they're doing and how they're doing. And to me, I think it's very important to kind of feed myself as well as I give out. And I look to do something. So anything to do with, you know, nutrition, anything to do with training, I would jump right into it. Any sort of courses that I can find my time to do. But the other thing I've really focused on this year is building character. And what I mean by that is learning how to give without an expectation of getting back. A lot of the times, you know, you have an expectation of people around you. And that expectation is your perception of it. If someone doesn't live up to that expectation, you get disappointed. It's nothing to do with them. It's to do with you and your expectation of them. So that's something I've kind of dealt with because I've high expectations for people around me, especially my staff. You know, I'm giving them so much, and I really expect a high level of giving back to me. But a lot of the times, I don't get that, and I don't get that because it's not their fault. It is my fault. It is my fault for putting that expectation on them. And I think life becomes a lot better when you learn to put away the expectations. When you give out of your heart and you give and you don't expect back, probably that's my lesson to learn.
Yeah. You know? What put you on that path? What gave you that insight? Because it's an interesting self-reflection on there, and you've got to be very self-aware to realize that as well.
Running a business to where I am right now, I've come through a whole sort of personal realization journey in that sense. I think the people that have come through my path has given me a much better idea on how to handle people. What I mean by that, I'm very objective. I'm a type A personality. I'm black and white. But in all my years of being a business owner and a mentor, the people that have come in have not been type A. They have been extremely emotional, extremely needy, and people that are not as specific as myself. Like I'm a perfectionist, and I haven't met a perfectionist. Yeah. So in order to make things run, it is not trying to convert them to be about me. It is trying to see their point of view. And that's what I would say teaches me to be a more effective leader.
Yeah. But also from an outsider's point of view as well, they probably fill in the gaps that you miss.
100%.
Because if you're black and white and they're in the grey area, they're painting that.
100%. Yeah. And this is why stepping back has allowed me to see that. Because as a type A personality, you don't see that. It is your way or the highway. You know, so I've learned through the hard way. In Fitness First, for example, you were there. You know, it's 30, 35 businesses running under one roof in a small space. Everyone competes. Everyone, you know, you're selfish. You keep information to yourself. And that was me. I was completely selfish, completely wanting to keep information to myself. And what I found is that the more I did that, the more I repelled people from me. And coming to this space right now where I'm, you know, I've been blessed with this space for 6 years and you know, and having the space run, one of the things that I really felt was in this space, I'm able to give more. Instead of keeping what I've learned to myself, right now I've got courses. I give as much as I can. And the more I give, the more I feel that my energy is being rejuvenated. The more I give, the more I receive from that person. Yeah. So that's one thing I really learned is it's to be completely unselfish in giving, because you can never take the information away to your grave, right? But when you are in that state of being selfish, you don't realize it.
Yeah, but it's not helping you. You don't realize that you hoarding your information.
No.
And even if you give it to someone else, and I had this conversation with Olivia the other day about we give a lot of information to our clients and our customers, and she's always worried about, what if they just share it with someone else? And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter if they give, our documents to someone else and they can read our information. At the end of the day, can they deliver it themselves?
That is exactly right.
You can't.
Exactly right.
If you walked out down the street to F45, I saw it was just across the road, and you said, here's all this information, they wouldn't know what to do with it.
No, exactly right. So that's why it's so important when you're, let's say for me, when I'm lecturing, to not just teach what's on the paper, but to give what is of me. I am an extension of what I teach. And I know no matter what information I give out, my information is not new. Everything is on the internet. I am by no means a guru or someone coming up with new information. I am a translator. I take information and I can give it to you in a way that you can understand it and grasp. That's what I'm good at.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's an extension of me.
Yeah.
And people relate to that. So exactly what you're saying. If you've got information, people relate to you, not the information. It's how you deliver that information that's important.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't hoard information. And,
no
and
way.
The more we get out there and share our success stories and stuff, you start to see then it perpetuates your business as well.
100%.
Because even if you've given what you were talking about before as, not being selfish and then give to someone not to receive, oftentimes, it's whether you call it karma or whatever it is, the more you put out there, the more good stuff will come back.
It's a weird thing. It really is. And it works. And it works whether or not it's your intention to take something back. But giving is so important. This is the one thing I find. I've actually found Charles Poliquin talks about this in his courses. Every time he talks about giving a tenth of whatever he's earned, and obviously he's passionate about big cats, and so he gives it to a big cat foundation. I've learned that giving is extremely important, so I do use that teaching of what he's talked about 10%. And so what I earn, I make sure I have a certain amount that I give back. It may be to someone in need, it may be to a family, it may be to anything, but I give back. And I think that's super important because the more you give, that's how you
and it's
get
not,
back.
A lot of times, money is obviously important to give, but a thing that I just heard earlier today, it's not, sometimes giving your time is more valuable than
100%.
If you
it's giving your heart, your time, your effort.
Yeah, because time at the end of the day is unrenewable.
Yep.
And if you're giving someone an extra hour like you spent with Martin all those times and with Terry, it's like you're actually giving without the intention of anything coming back.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Powerful message. All right. Well, I guess on that note, is there anything else, any insights, any ideas or things for the next 12 months that you're planning on before we come to an end?
I think 2020 is, again, it's going to be a huge year for us. We've branched into numerous countries, more countries this year with our courses. And 2020 is not going to be any different. In fact, we've already planned places like China and Vietnam that we're going to branch into. I definitely want to make a return to Dubai to be able to bring some of my courses out. So this could be really good and an opportunity to do that again. But also in saying that, I think we're also looking at moving to the online platform and getting our courses out. And this is an opportunity for me to give out more information, because sometimes in our courses, every time where I teach a course, the structure as well as information of a course is always dictated by the group of people that's within it. Sure, they've got a syllabus that they learn, but I always give above and beyond that. I talk about experiences, I talk about a whole range of different information, right? But that depends on the people that ask about the questions about the information. Yeah. So when we're branching to an online platform, it allows me to build up a lot of this information and to continually give and to put into the online platform that people can actually hear and receive.
And how are you doing that online? Is it going to be through a subscription website, or is there like some sort of back end thing that you're working on now?
It will be a subscription website. Yeah. So the online courses will be courses where they can learn technical and theoretical information online, but there will also be a practical portion where, they will come in, they have to sit the courses physically to actually learn how to deliver it. But also at the same time, we want to be able to give them a lot more sort of studies and information that they can read on to build up their foundational knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I look forward to hopefully having you in Dubai, and we can.
Man, I am looking forward to it.
We can show you around. We'll work on that tan as well.
Yes, I need a tan. Thank you for reminding me. But I definitely need a tan. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Any parting words for the listeners? Any advice? I think last time your parting advice was to ask more questions. And anything today?
Yep. No, I mean, I think what would be good is if your audience, for example, could give me an idea of what they want to know more. Again, whether it's anything to do with business, anything to do with training or nutrition. My Instagram page is Ben Performance Coach. So Ben Performance Coach on Instagram, or at Train ASP. If they want to, send me a message or DM me or give me an idea of what they would like to see more, I'll be happy to put that up. Because the page is really dedicated to information that I can give. So if you look through it, it's about me talking within my courses itself. It's about me giving as many different perspectives as I can. One thing I want to highlight is that I'm really big on taking different perspectives on things. And this is one thing I've learned personally in my life, that, if you really want to excel and develop in what you do, learn to take different perspectives. There is no one perspective in fitness. Your ability to be a critical thinker is important as a coach. So learn as many courses as you can, take as many different perspectives as you can, and you will find that there isn't one solution that fits all. There isn't one main perspective. Learn from as many so-called gurus or, whatever you want to call them. Experts. Take that information and put it in your toolbox, and then learn to slowly utilize that information. Practice it on clients, because what is being taught, for example, may not apply to your clientele. So if it doesn't apply to your clientele, that doesn't mean it's wrong or it's bad. That just means that you may not have met the right clientele, but keep that information. Use it at the right time. Don't be a bad carpenter that you blame your tools, right? Obviously, at the end of the day, learn to use your tools well, and you'll be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for coming. I know you just arrived, but thank you for being here. I hope you can squeeze a workout in.
I will, definitely.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.